I love these kinds of songs because you can do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's perfect song for that.
Community.
Exactly.
We've got some soul happening today on the live. I'd love to know how many of you know this one. Please feel free to jam with me. Give yourself a chance. You've got soul. Everybody knows. I'd love to know if anybody knows this song. If you do, post it in the chat. And I'm gonna see if anybody knows this song. So I'm gonna actually welcome everybody to the live at 5 with the Financial Confidant. I'm Jackie Porter, and I am all about, and my team is all about, making financial conversations accessible. And of course, today will be no different. Our first live each month is our Ask Us Anything series, featuring Jin Lee, who's of course here today, and Jin Lee's team, Jackie Porter's lead financial planners. And last month, you got to know him a little bit better when we did our Meet the Team Values series. So you probably learned a little bit more about Jin. I learned a little bit more about Jin, and I thought I knew Jin. But yeah, so he's back as he is every month. And this month, actually, it's all about financial hacks. That's what we're going to be talking about. And this whole concept of hacking is something we're going to examine a little bit more closely this month. For example, how does hacking help us get things done in a way that feels easier? You know, that's the reason your pretend DJ chose this song, because I really feel strongly that building wealth does not have to be hard. And as I mentioned, this song, I'm just waiting to see if anybody posts in the chat, but this song is actually a cover the song is basically a cover that actually has been covered by many artists, such as Curtis Mayfield. If any of you know who Curtis Mayfield is, Jin, do you know who Curtis Mayfield is?
Jackie, you know me, I don't really know that.
I know. Every single month when we bring out music and I've got Jen on, I feel so ancient, Confidant community. And how many of you out there work with millennials and Gen Zs and they make you feel irrelevant all the time? If you do, feel free to join my support group. Okay, feel free. Anyway, as I said, this song was covered by such artists as Curtis Mayfield. This particular cover is actually by John Batiste. Nobody posted in the chat, but it's by John Batiste and Celeste. And the song is All Right. It's called It's All Right. And, you know, really, I'm talking about how hacking can help you get things done easier. And my take on this song, It's All Right, is let's press the easy button and use financial hacks to help you smartly build wealth. So that's what we were going to focus on today. Let's press the easy button, folks. So let's get into it. Jin, welcome back to the live. I picked this song also especially for you because I figured you'd make me feel ancient. How do you like it?
I love it, Jackie. And you mentioned this was a song that's also featured in Soul?
Yeah, the Disney movie Soul.
Yeah, the Disney movie Soul. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, this kind of rings my bell. I watched the movie too, and
gosh, exactly. Well, John Batiste is quite the famous musician. He's such a talented musician genius. He's considered a musical genius. He's won, I'm sure, Grammys. I'm probably missing some of the things he's done, but he's amazing. And of course, got to bring a woman in. So it's always nice to have a collaboration. And of course, kind of like me and Jin collaborating again today. So that's one of the reasons I picked this for us, Jin. So let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Sure, what are some hacks that we need to be telling the Confidant community about? Can you talk, Jin, about some financial hacks that Canadians can use to improve their financial situation? Some of our favorite hacks that we use with clients?
Mm-hmm. So turns out while Jackie, you and I were preparing for this, there's a lot of hacks, a lot more than I thought, right? Yeah, so we had to really cut down and to figure out which ones we wanted to discuss. And the one thing that really comes up a lot for our clients and also for a lot of Canadians is how do you balance and discipline yourself with spending and saving for the future? So,
such a big one. Don't we have conversations like this all the time with clients?
All the time.
Striking the balance, right? It's so important.
Even for myself, that's always something I try to do better,
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, it's something you know you have to do, but it's more of a behavioral thing where you have to really make yourself push yourself to do it. And but I also think when it's something related to behavior, it's a lot easier to do it if you set up a system to
that's
do it.
right.
So the first hack for ourselves is setting up an automatic investing.
That's actually been the thing that saved me all the time is let me
Yes.
start by saving first and then spending.
Oh yeah, 100%. That really gives us also peace of mind,
Yeah,
knowing that I already set aside for my future whatever I have remaining. That's something I can spend guilt free. So
right,
this is comes hand to hand with budgeting at the same time, where budgeting can help you think through how much you need to spend on some of your fixed expenses and how much you might want to allocate to your uh, needs, your wants, not the needs.
right.
And this way you can see how much available you have for savings. Once you have that amount, you can log into, let's say, any of the pretty much any of the investment portals you might have access to. Set it up. If you're working with an advisor, you can speak to your advisor to set up a monthly contributions or semi-monthly. And a lot of times, what we do for a client is really matching it with their paychecks.
Right.
So if you have your paycheck coming in on, let's say, first day of the month, set it up so that the money gets withdrawn maybe the
Right.
day after.
Exactly. It's gone. It's
Yeah,
gone. And then you're living on the difference and you've worked out a budget that's realistic to stick to that.
exactly. Especially because budget, I find that a lot of clients or even friends, families I talk to, it's something they know they have to do, but it's hard to stick to and hard to do it themselves just because of all the psychological factors behind it.
It is. I
So
call it the B word, right? Budgeting.
yeah, the
Like a
B
bad
word.
word.
Yeah, the B
How many
word.
of you out there consider
It's
the budgeting the B word? It's a bad word.
Yeah, it's a very, very bad word. Bad word. Yeah, so setting up an automatic saving definitely helps. But at the same time, doing the budget itself is also another hack we recommend. And one thing it helps you to do is once you know how much you're allocated to each of these different items and expenses, it's easier to track expenses and compare against how much you're actually spending versus how much you're budgeting for. So
That's it. I used to always say to clients when I started, and I don't say it as much anymore, but it's no less true. Whatever isn't saved is spent. That's simple.
exactly.
Right? Whatever you don't save, like if you earn this much and it's not saved, then it's spent. Where did the money go? Well,
Yeah.
it got spent.
Exactly. Yeah, and also once as you track your expenses, it's really also another behavioral psychological factor that whatever gets measured really gets done. So building a habit, maybe you can get an app, download an app. There's a good one called You Need a Budget, and I also use a more of a simpler one where every time I make a purchase on credit card, I open up the app while I'm waiting for the cashier or waiting
Oh,
for the line or at the parking lot. I just really record whatever I spend in the track in the app, just so that I can keep track of how much I'm spending on, let's say, food or if I'm spending on restaurant and so on.
I love that idea because it's easy. And any other hacks that we should look at, Jen?
Sure. Making use of all the cashback rewards program through your credit cards or any, uh, let's say, any grocery stores, their own loyalty programs,
Yeah,
any
there's
of
so
these.
many. The optimum points.
Yeah.
How many of you out there use the optimum points? Any other rewards programs that you like? There's so many out there. Only in the interest of time, we won't get into all of them,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
definitely post your favorite rewards program in the chat. We really urge you to, so everybody else can learn.
hmm Yeah. So if you don't have any, if you feel like you can handle credit card and not overspend it, it's a great tool that you can use to uh, help you get rewards and make use of all these benefits.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Perfect. Okay, and then the only other hack I would probably talk about here is consider downloading grocery apps. I mean, right now,
Oh yeah.
groceries is still a big, a really big topic, hot topic, because inflation costs of groceries have gone up so much. So look at downloading apps like Flip to help you
Oh
find
yes.
what are the sales in your area, what's on sale. Because I actually I was planning on putting it in one of our socials this month, but I think a client sent me a picture when she went to Costco last and was looking to buy a watermelon because it's watermelon season. And would you believe $15 at Costco for a watermelon? Anybody willing to pay $15 for a watermelon? I don't know. I'm not that thirsty, right?
You know what's so interesting, Jackie? You brought that up. So I remember you telling me about it too. And the next day, I went to another grocery store. I think this was theirs, and they had a watermelon. It was definitely smaller size, but still like
Mhm.
medium size on sale.
Right.
For it was only for $5.
Oh my goodness.
So
So it really makes a difference, right?
it
It makes a
does.
difference to shop around. So check out
Yeah.
apps like Flip. But again, post your favorite sale app for groceries in the chat. Let's all learn and save together. And then the second one would be cutting out unnecessary subscriptions. How many of you looked lately on what you're spending every month for your, Amazon Prime, all these different music subscriptions? Maybe you were using them through the pandemic. Are you using them now? Is that the best place for your money to
Mhm.
go? Cut things you're spending money on that you're not using that could actually be redirected to the things you actually care about. So
Mhm.
I'm going to stick to those just in the interest of time, Jin.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
let's continue on. Let's talk next now about investment and tax hacks. What are some of the top hacks that we should be thinking about from an investment and tax point of view?
So these are something a lot of Canadians already know. Really making use of tax advantageous investment
Yeah.
accounts like TFSA and RSP. So a lot of times, we this is something we see often. It's clients saving for emergency or big expenses, and they might be putting it into a high interest savings account, but not in a TFSA. So let's say you do get a high interest savings account, get a good interest of 5%. All of them will be taxable income for you at the end of the tax year.
Exactly.
And if you know that you haven't maxed out your TFSA, that could be a good place to go. And also, added benefit to that is whatever interest will be tax free. Plus,
Yes.
when you take it out, it will grow your TFSA rate because whatever the amount you take out the year after, you'll get the full room back
Exactly. You
based on
don't
the
lose it.
amount.
You don't lose it
Yeah.
like you do in the RSP. If you take it out, you can't put that same money back into your RSP.
Mhm.
So with the TFSA, you could use it without losing it.
Exactly. And if you're, let's say, a business owner, and if you are this on a contract job where you'll have a high income in a given year, and probably not going to have a high as high of income the year after, putting into money in RS, being strategic about it, putting into RSP on the higher income years, and then putting the money in TFSA during the lower income years
Yeah. Yeah.
could be also a good way to save on your taxes and making most use of all these RSPs and TFSA and tax advantage accounts.
Love that. Love
Mhm.
that. Any others?
So also investments, something I just realized we talk about this a lot with our clients, and diversification is also very important for your investments.
Right.
So this is something. It also it's heavily influenced by personal preferences as well. Sometimes it's hard to stick with diversification when you
Yeah.
see
Oh,
all this
FOMO. I think FOMO and
FOMO. Yes.
fear of missing out, but also um, when you've already lost, fear of losing it even more, right? So I think it's FOMO, the FOMO fear of loss, like, oh my goodness, did we get it wrong? Or FOMO fear of missing out on gains is also, are we missing out on gains? I think those are really
Yeah.
things that
Oh
lead
yeah.
people to not diversify, right? They get worried or they get greedy and then they try to put all their eggs in one basket, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. And what also having really concentrated portfolio. What it also does is when it's down, then it's really difficult for it to stay invested.
Yeah.
And we've spoke about it multiple times through the lives as well. There's a lot of benefits and returns that comes out of staying invested in the market.
Yeah, the research is clear.
Yeah.
Those day traders that we hear about, like it's kind of like the guy. It's usually guys. Let's be clear. Let's be honest. It's often guys saying how much they make as day traders. What they don't tell you, confidant community, how much they're losing as day traders, because they're jumping in and out of the market every day. It's very extremely challenging to make money that way. So don't always believe the highlight reel of people when they tell you what they're making in their investment portfolio daily.
Oh yeah.
You really need to take a closer look to find out, is this really true?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Jim.
I had a day trading friend who stopped day trading after a while, and he was telling me how great returns he was having. Then I asked him why he stopped doing if you're having such a great returns. And he had no comments afterwards.
Exactly. But yeah, I find that men tend to brag about things when they're going well, but you don't hear, you hear crickets when things aren't going so well. So don't always believe what you hear at these dinner parties when people are just trying to make conversations.
Oh yeah.
Some of my other favorite hacks, or our favorite hacks, are how many of you at work maybe are in a stock purchase plan and get dividends. I would love to know in the chat if you are in some type of stock purchase plan, even in your own stock portfolio or in a stock portfolio through your workplace. Are you taking the cash dividends you receive and spending it, or are you reinvesting it? An awesome hack is to just reinvest those dividends you receive, just so that you have more money at work growing over time, rather than taking it in cash. When, most people, when you ask them, what did I do with the money I got back from my dividend that could have been repurchased, but my dividend check, they have no idea what they spent it on. So don't be one of those people. Use that money to grow your wealth for the future. That's an easy way to do it without it costing you anything. This was free. This was money you weren't expecting to spend. So why spend it? The second one would be income splitting. And again, confidant community, I would love to know if you as a business owner are taking advantage of income splitting with your partner. And have you ever talked to your accountant about income splitting with your partner? Spousal RSPs is also another great way to income split. And then the other thing is, if you're a retiree, is looking at income splitting your pension when you're actually in retirement, like your RIF pension or your pension from a company. Are you income splitting? Have you ever heard of that? And are you using it to reduce the amount of taxes and end up with more cash in your pocket? Because it's all about getting more money in your pocket without you having to work harder. So consider those two: dividend reinvesting, so not taking the dividend check, reinvesting it for extra wealth, or splitting your income with your partner. And we talked about different ways to do it. Now, go ahead, Jin.
Yeah, there's also ways to set this automatically with your investment accounts.
Absolutely.
If your advisors can do it, if you're self-directed investment accounts, there's also options to set it up automatically. And this way, the cash, dividends, once you get it, will go back to your investments right away without wasting time sitting in it as cash.
I love it. Press the easy button, folks, so then you don't end up getting a check that you have no idea what you're going to spend it on, and then it goes and you don't even remember. Have it go right back to the investment so that your money keeps growing smartly. Now, let's move on to debt management. Here is an interesting one. How many of you are struggling with paying off debt, especially since interest rates went all the way up, right? Please feel free to post in the chat. Jin, what are some essential hacks the confidant community needs to know about when it comes to debt?
Sure. There's a lot of ones. First is creating a list of all the debts you have.
Right.
And looking at put interest rates beside each of these accounts and see how much interest you're paying.
Right.
And also see how much room you might have on all these different types of credits to see if it makes sense to consolidate your debt. So there might be times where you realize you have a high carrying balance on credit card that's you're paying 20% interest on. At the same time, you have a revolving mortgage or a home equity line of credit that's only maybe paying still high, given the interest rate we're in. Right. Let's say 10%, 9%, which is still a lot lower than the credit card.
Yeah, people don't realize the average credit card interest rate is at least 24%.
Oh, yeah. Exactly, and it's also psychologically when you are building uh, a lot of balance in credit card. A lot of times, what I see is people just stop taking actions on it,
It
and it
feels
stops.
overwhelming. It
Yeah,
feels hard, like you'll never get out, right? You can't get out
exactly,
from under this debt.
exactly. It gets overwhelming, and you stop looking at it, stop thinking about ways to save on interest. But if you have any rooms on the lower interest credits, make use of that by withdrawing money from those extra credits you have on the lower interest, paying off the higher interest credits like credit cards.
Love that. Yeah, it's all about getting rid of that high interest debt, isn't it?
Exactly. It's hard to do it if you're trying to just look to yourself, but just that it's something that you have to constantly remind yourself to do it. Maybe set up a time, uh, block a time on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon to look at all your credit card balances, look at the interest, and see if you can save an interest by consolidating some of the debts.
Yeah, make that all of essential, all important appointment with yourself on how you're
It,
going to make your financial circumstances better. And
Mhm.
I always think when you do something that you feel like is hard, pair it with something fun, like maybe
Yeah.
watching. One of my favorites is, you might know this because we talked about it, watching one of those shows on Netflix, like one of the bingeable shows on
Yeah.
Netflix. Like for me right now, it's all about what's that show? I'm trying to think of the name. Bridgerton. So it's like, let me deal with my debt this morning, and then this afternoon I'm going to binge Bridgerton, the series.
Yeah, or if you're a foodie like me, order of your favorite takeout, grab a drink,
Yep.
eat it, look good while you're eating some of your favorite foods.
Yeah, or deal with your debt that way. It's like, after I finish, then I'm going to have one of my favorite
Yeah,
meals,
yeah,
a treat for keeping on top of my debts.
exactly. Awesome.
Awesome. Love that.
Okay,
Any
and
other ones?
yeah, and just building on to consolidating debt is sometimes it gives a lot of peace of mind having cash in your checking accounts. But we see this happening even if you have high credit card balance or
Yeah.
when there is high interest on line of credits as well.
Yeah.
So although it's really comforting to have cash in your checking account, it's better to still pay that off, pay off your credit card, pay off your line of credit with the cash. And if you need it for emergency, you can always borrow back just for that emergency. And if you do that, whatever the time between you had from now until you need it for emergency, you'll be saving interest in all those times. So and
That's
those are the amounts that could add up quite a lot.
100%. People seem to forget how much, interest here, interest there, how it all adds up
Yeah,
to cutting money out of your pocket. Again, this is money you're working for. How can you keep more of that money in your pocket without having to go to work that many more hours, working
hmm,
harder, make your money work harder? And that's really what, hacking, financial hacks, this whole show is about today. Another one, what's another one around leveraging? I know we
sure.
haven't talked
Yeah.
about leveraging before on this live, or maybe we haven't. I just can't remember. But I know you
Oh,
had a really good
mhm.
hack about that as well.
Right. That's right. So making smart use of that,
Yeah,
it's also something essential and very helpful in building your wealth. So this may not work for everybody,
that's
but
right.
if you are someone who still have a lot of long time horizon until retirement to build your assets, making use of your debt to build your assets in by taking advantage of the difference between lower interest rate versus higher return long term potential on, let's say, stock market could be a good way to build assets. And a lot of Canadians are doing it without even knowing about it when they buy a home.
That's true. That's a great example of leveraging. You're borrowing all this money from the bank
Yeah.
to buy a house. And even if, just think about it, even if on 100,000, at 3% you're borrowing, or if you earn 3%, on 100,000, that's still like 3 grand, right? Versus,
Exactly.
versus if you put that same money, because now you're looking at, but at the end of the day, it's that larger amount of money working for you,
Hmm.
and even if it's growing at a low interest rate. So I just use 100,000. But if we're talking, you bought a house for $1 million, now that's 30,000. So it really makes a difference, leveraging, because it's now we're using bigger numbers, even at lower interest rates, to grow your wealth. And so that's probably why Canadians get so comfortable around real estate, right?
Yeah. Because for real estate, it's something that's commonly done where you take leverage mortgage. But when it comes to investments, it's not something a lot of people do. So it's maybe more foreign concept. And
but I think it's the same.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, it's the same. And if you don't really feel comfortable holding debt for too long, another good hack is, let's say you hear a market crash, you hear all the pessimistic news. Everyone's talking about how the market has crashed, how their portfolio is not doing well. That's a good time to borrow and invest.
That's right. And you know what? Just a modest amount. It doesn't have to be a ton of money. Like it's all relative. But it's how can you use other people's money? I like to call it OPM, other people's money, to help you build wealth. So leveraging is all about, and I, this might be politically charged, but this is something someone by the name of Donald Trump talks about, is using other people's money to build wealth. It's a very powerful way to build wealth, and lots of wealthy people do that.
Yeah, 100%. But for this one, this is something I'm a little cautious at the same time.
Exactly.
Because leverage is a double-edged sword. They can go the other way around as well. So I highly recommend speaking to professional advisors, professional planners, to see what the best way around is to use leverage against your advantage, for your advantage, to build your wealth.
100%. So those are great hacks around debt, Jin. So thank you for sharing this with the Confidant community. I have another one. So Confidant community, have you ever heard of the balance transfer strategy? Anyone? Feel free to post in the chat if you've ever used the balance transfer strategy. So check this out. Balance transfer strategy is something I've been using since university days, based on being very humble beginnings, if anybody read my bio. But anyway, in a nutshell, how balance transfers work is you'll get an offer from a credit card company to transfer a balance on higher interest credit cards, and they'll give it to you anywhere from 0% to up to, I'm usually saying only up to 3%. So they charge a one-time interest rate of 3%, and that's what you pay for the entire 9 months. So if you have higher interest rates that you're paying elsewhere to the tune of 20%, 24%, whatever the case is, you can now shift, depending on how much they loan you, this amount to this balance transfer. And then anything you put above the 3% that you paid is all paying the principal. So it just gives you some time, so you can have anywhere from 9 months to a year with this structure to really focus on paying down your current debt. And then really what you want to do, because here is the trick, you really want to make sure you move that back to whatever structure you can get. So maybe after paying down that much towards your balance transfer offer, you've also improved your credit, so you can apply for a consolidation loan or put those debts back where they were, but you're now putting back a much lower amount. So one of my favorite hacks, check out balance transfer, Google balance transfer. You'll see some companies come up. I don't want to promote anybody on my live, but you can check it out. And I'd love to know if anybody out there has used the balance transfer. Feel free to post that in the chat as well.
And just one more thing to add on to balance transfer is it's a great way to save on interest, but there may be some credit score consequences. It might hurt your credit a little bit, but at the same time, it's still a lot better than continue to carry on this balance, accumulating your interest and eventually defaulting on the loans. It's a lot better approach. So still, you consider both the pros and cons, but at the same time, we suggest highly considering it if you're in the situations where you're struggling to pay off your credit card. And we think the pros outweighs the cons.
100%. I use balance transfers now because I have a line of credit mortgage, and I just borrow as much as they'll give me at the lower interest rate and throw that on my homeowner line
Oh
of
yeah,
credit
yeah.
to reduce my interest costs. So
Hmm.
we're all about just using debt smartly. So it's just being very intentional about how you use debt. And as Jin mentioned, it's always great to speak to an advisor about the pros and cons of
Hmm.
how to smartly use debt. Now let's finally talk about, Jin, home and property hacks. What do we have there?
Okay. So my favorite one is called Smith's maneuver.
Mm.
So this is basically
Smith
strategy.
maneuver?
Yeah, Smith's
Okay.
maneuver. Yeah,
Mhm.
I always struggle to pronounce this word
Yeah,
properly.
Smith
Yeah,
maneuver. I know, I do too. So that's why I'm like, Smith maneuver, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Smith maneuver. So what it is basically if you are borrowing, even if it's your mortgage, if you're using the loan to invest in something. So it not doesn't apply for TFSA and RSP though. So let's say you're investing in a rental property by refinancing your mortgage, or let's say you have a non-registered account and you're borrowing money to invest in non-registered account and hold investments there, then the whatever the loan you borrowed, interest on it will be tax deductible.
Yes.
So it's essentially a one way to turn your mortgage into tax deductible loan versus if it just stays as a mortgage and it's not a tax deductible loan. So that's a one neat trick where you can take the leverage to invest, but at the same time, reducing the interest you have to pay on it.
Right. So now instead of your mortgage just being and the interest you pay being something you just have to pay after, so I always think of debt as money I have to come up with after tax. That's just literally going out to, nothing I'm going to be able to get back. But now you can actually write off some of those debts against your mortgage using the Smith maneuver. So again, another one of these strategies where it's really important to talk to an advisor to make sure you're structuring it properly and that you're using it in a way that really accounts for the risk that you're taking as well. So it's all about implementing something like a Smith maneuver correctly.
Yeah.
So I have a couple more hacks, property hacks, some of my favorites that I wanted to talk about, especially in these high interest rate, high inflation times where people are always looking for extra income. One of the things you can do, and I know people are doing Airbnbs and they're, doing rentals, is consider renting out unused space in your home. So maybe creating a rental property in your basement or spare room to create an extra stream of income. That is definitely a way to, make your property work harder for you, especially if you're having to come up with all this new interest as your mortgage renews and you have to come up with all this new money to pay the mortgage. Consider, again, renting out that unused space in your home. And then the other thing you want to consider, I have these conversations with, our clients all the time, especially as they're trying to help their children get into the market, getting into the mortgage, getting into the home buying space. Consider where you want to buy a property. Are you going to rent or are you going to buy? Because the numbers matter. I mean, the numbers are getting bigger and bigger. Interest rates are getting bigger and bigger. You don't necessarily need to buy a home where you live. So what if you rented a property where you wanted to live and bought a property somewhere else, or maybe decide to live somewhere else to make use of buying a property at a much lower rate? And I know, Jin, you've made use of this hack. Would you be
Oh
willing
yeah.
to share a little bit of yours?
Sure. Yeah. So this involved relocating myself to Calgary, where it has a more
Yeah.
affordable housing. And one thing before I decided to relocate was buying a home in Calgary and renting it in Toronto was one thing I was considering, because when you look at the rent to home price ratios, it was a lot more attractive to buy in Calgary and rent it out, get the rental income, and then use the money to rent it out a place in Toronto for myself. So that was one thing I considered. So and then I ended up relocating myself, but I was able to buy a two-bedroom condo here in Calgary downtown for half the price I paid for a one-bedroom condo in Mississauga. So
Crazy.
That's a big win for me.
No, it's a huge win for anyone who
Yeah.
is trying to get into the markets, either looking to buy to live in like Calgary, or maybe in another province that has cheaper rates to purchase homes, or in another town, like maybe another town outside of the GTA that might offer lower rates for buying a home and still renting in the place where you want to live. So
Mhm.
it's just really about deciding what dreams really matter to you. Does home ownership really matter to you, or is it having an investment property? What does that look like? Having those conversations with the people who manage your money, and then looking at strategies to make that happen. It sounds to me, Jen, that you really thought through that whole process of buying a home,
Mhm.
and recognize end of day, it's all about creating a situation for yourself where you have a bit more cash flow to
Yeah.
actually have a life, right? That's what
Yeah.
people.
100%.
Yeah, and so you just kind of have to talk through. That's one of the reasons we call ourselves confidants, is talk through those really important money conversations and make sure it makes sense, and that it also aligns with your long-term goals. So happy to have those conversations with you. Jen, thank you so much for providing us
No
all of
problem.
these amazing hacks. So many.
Yeah. Oh
How
yeah.
hope all of you were able to catch all of them. But if you weren't, then don't worry. We've got you. We're going to be providing a summary of the top hacks from this live on Sunday in case you're just tuning in, but we might have missed some hacks. I know there's so many hacks out there, as Jen mentioned. So if there are hacks that we've missed, or you have a favorite hack, financial hack that you use, please feel free to post them in the chat. We definitely want to share that with our community, and everybody can benefit from learning and building wealth together. And as I mentioned, if you are someone who is putting off dealing with your finances, maybe because you expect that the process is going to be hard, we're here for you. Let's work together to finally press the easy button when it comes to building your wealth. So feel free to reach out to us. Jody's on the live, ready to book a 30-minute conversation with you. And as always, if you enjoyed this live, please like, share, and comment. Sharing is truly caring. And thank you once again for joining the live at 5 for all of our information on financial hacking. We have way more in store for you on hacking this month. And if you missed any of the episodes, check out our podcasts on YouTube. And remember to follow us for all the latest updates. Thanks so much, Confidant community. See you next week. Bye, everybody. Thanks again for joining
Thank you,
us.
everyone. No problem. Take
Bye
care.
now.